Hi, soul, being absolutely beautiful every time. I'm Sri Venus. I'm a personal evolution guide. And, wait, are we on? Okay, yeah, we are. So I wanted to talk more about resisting the natural flow of transformation because I know this is something that I struggled with so much, but once it clicked, oh my gosh, my life became so much easier. Like, I removed a lot of nonsense, a lot of BS, because there's a lot of noise in the world, right? So when I'm talking about the external world, I'm talking about anything that's outside of the self, anything that's outside of you. Like, I am a part of the external world, right? You are a part of the external world for me. I am part of the external world for you, right? And when you do not when you're not sourcing your power from inside of you, you're always going to be a victim to other people, because other people are always going to pull. You're always going to gravitate to people with more power than you, right? So when you're not aware that the power is within you, you're always going to find yourself pedestaling other people, or you're always going to find yourself being a victim of your circumstances, being a victim of your past, being a victim of your mind, being a victim of your emotions. And you want to avoid that by actually living in alignment with the natural order of things. So when you're in your ego, especially when you're in your wounded ego, right? Your wounded ego is all about now is not perfect. Now is wrong. Like there's something I need to fix myself. There's something wrong, right? I'm separate from my desires. That's your wounded ego, right? And sometimes we're not even conscious of it. It's just part of the programming we have, and the programming of society that we are actually responding to. But when you become aware of the natural flow of transformation, because the world is always evolving, the world is always transforming, that's nature. And I'm not talking about society, I'm talking about nature, where we all come from, like the natural order of things, like the God consciousness. We come from nature, and it's always evolving, just like how seasons transform. There's always a pattern of order. Right now, I'm in the northern hemisphere, so it's when autumn, we're approaching winter. So we know, like, okay, well, now nature is transforming from autumn into winter, so it's actually going to get colder, it's going to get windier, people are gonna get sniffles. Like the temperature of the room changes, the way people act changes. People are walking maybe slower or faster depending whether they're inside or outside. There's a whole energy energy current going on, right? And it's the same thing with your life. No matter where you are in life, there's always a current going on. And when you're not aware of this current that's going on, you're always going to be a victim to it. So you want to create more awareness, you want to be a conscious co-creator with life instead of being like, oh, life is happening to you. And that's when you actually start feeling like, oh, okay, I'm living in rhythm with life, instead of like living like you're not you're not in tune with it. You're not living in tune. So when you notice yourself like resisting it, like life is so hard, like I even wrote a couple of like symptoms right here that happen when you're not living in the natural flow of transformation. So you're feeling consistently like exhausted, you feel disconnected from life, disconnected from yourself, you're stuck in loops, you're constantly self-judging yourself, you're you're always in regret, and you're always blaming yourself or other people, constantly in victim mindset, living from unresolved wounds, right? This might be conscious or unconscious, and you're constantly repeating self-sabotaging narratives, which are normally like limiting beliefs or self-doubt. You're consistently overwhelmed, you're having panic attacks, you have anxiety, you're constantly defending yourself, you're always defensive, your language is always so defensive. You distrust people, you distrust yourself, you distrust your environment, you distrust life. You're constantly isolated because you're living in fear, and you're living, you've got this whole narrative about who you are in the world and other people, and we're going to go deeper into that. Or you're even codependent on other people for you to have power, for you to have have a sense of self, or to have security, or to have a say in the world. You're living from fear, we spoke about that, and you're also projecting your pain onto other people. So when you find yourself like having these symptoms, it's not a place for you to say, oh, there's something wrong with me. We're having a human experience. There's nothing wrong with having the dark side, the shadow, right? Remember, on my front page, I always say that you're both darkness and light. And when you're resisting this darkness, that's where you create more suffering. So we want to avoid all of that. So how do you do that? Right? Living in tune with the natural flow of transformation. It's when you realize that we have different states of consciousness, right? So we have 7 different states of consciousness. We've got the survival consciousness, we've got relationship consciousness, we've got power consciousness, we've got heart consciousness, we've got expression consciousness, we've got visionary consciousness, and we've got unity consciousness. And in this group, we're mostly activating the visionary consciousness. But for the visionary consciousness, where you this is where you get your downloads, you get your insights, you get like the creative insights. You're like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm gonna create this, right? Your genius. That's where that's where it's like, you know, it gets sparked, right? But for you to, because this consciousness, it's like a building, it's like staircase, right? For you to get to the visionary consciousness, which is like the 6th stage, you need to have a strong foundation at its bottom, right? So it's at the 6th level, but the bottom 5 need to be strong for you to actually fully trust what's coming out, for you to actually feel like, oh yeah, these are my insights, this is who I am, this is what I'm creating. And when it's wobbly, then we've got a problem. Then you start sounding like a crazy person. You're probably like, you know, acting all crazy, and you feel misunderstood by other people because you're not understanding yourself. You're not in your center, right? So we want you to find your center. And that center, you start right at the bottom, right? Like when you're constantly in survival mode, constantly unconsciously creating from survival mode, constantly worrying about your basic needs. When you're having those downloads, it's not going to come from a place of like centeredness. It's gonna come from like, oh my gosh, I gotta survive, I gotta make this happen, right? And I can speak for myself, because I've been in this survival mode for such a long time. There's no potency, there's no there's no like that there's no that I know that radiance, right, when you're creating anything, because your energy is going on to make sure that your needs are met. So when the downloads come in, it's not there's no that right? So when you're not safe and secure in your 4 bodies, that's mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, when you're not safe, like, forget it, right? So you want to, that's the first thing you want to make sure of, like, are you in survival consciousness? Are you constantly worrying about your next meal? If you are, then you want to focus on this first, because you want to make sure that this level is secure first. And it doesn't mean that just because you're in this consciousness you're less than, right? There's a lot of, because we're working with we're constantly working with the programming of our past and programming of other people with the superiority complex who created this society, energy vampires, right? So you want to make sure that you're not comparing yourself to other people who never had survival consciousness because they were feeding off someone like you, right? So you want to make sure that you're not wasting your energy worrying about those people, because that's just giving them away your power, right? I'm gonna go deeper into this, but that's where what I notice a lot in our society, especially on social media, people are constantly like, oh, eat the rich, worrying about the government and feeling like, you know, like constantly on edge because your power is outside of yourself. But when you come back inside and realize, like, these people don't exist unless I give them attention. That's how powerful I am, right? When you come back to that, to your center, and realize, like, you know what, I'm a child of God, so F them. I don't need them, they need me, right? That energy, that, like, I'm stepping my my ground. I'm standing my ground, right? This is where the world ends within me, and this is where you also want to make sure that your emotional safety network is rooted in, because if the people you're attracting to the world don't make you feel safe, right? It's different when you're born into a situation where you're dependent on these people to take care of yourself, and they don't make you safe and whatnot, right? Once you get out, you gotta heal your stuff. That's where the healing, real healing, begins, because you're not healing whilst you're also being what's the word, right? You're healing in a different situation. You've pulled away yourself from the toxic environment, right? So the second one, the relationship consciousness, is all about your emotions, your pleasure, your creativity, relationships, right? This is where we actually expand that emotional safety